Hello everyone, Primer here and welcome back to Armored Warfare. Today's video is on the special side as it will feature a unique vehicle that is the RST-V aka the Shadow. This vehicle is by far the latest armored fighting vehicle that was introduced into Armored Warfare during the current American Dream season, and it's the newest Battalion contract reward as well. We will talk a bit more on how you can get your hands on one of these later in the video, but for now, let's talk about the vehicle itself. The Shadow is an American Tier 10 premium AFV that belongs to Oscar Faraday Vehicles Pool. As its name might suggest, the Shadow excels in the reconnaissance role on the battlefield, and by far it's the best pure scout in Armored Warfare. Although it's a premium, the vehicle does have unlockable upgrades through the highly debated over-progression system, and these upgrades are not cheap, as you will need a total of 3.2 million experience and 20 million credits to unlock and purchase everything on the Shadow. However, once the Shadow is fully upgraded, it becomes the true and ultimate scout of Armored Warfare. As far as stats go, a direct comparison between the Shadow and other AFVs like the Sphinx and Cornet isn't exactly meaningful, as each of these vehicles have a certain unique aspect to it. But still, I will put them all together just to show you some of the differences between them. While the Shadow looks to have the lowest damage per minute in this comparison and even the lowest penetration when compared to the Sphinx and Cornet ATGMs, it's actually a little bit deceiving. Because while the ATGMs on the Sphinx and Cornet might have to contest enemies' frontal and side armor, the missiles on the Shadow are actually true top attack that only need to worry about the roof armor of their targets. That's right, the Shadow is the second vehicle to be introduced into Armored Warfare that utilizes Javelin ATGMs as their armament, similar to the ones on the Leclerc T40. In fact, the ATGMs on the Shadow are exactly the same on the T40, but with much faster lock-on time and reload. As far as defense, well, the Shadow has no armor whatsoever, and with only 1,300 hit points, don't be surprised if you get one-shotted by some other vehicles. Mobility-wise, the Shadow is fairly quick, even more so than the Sphinx, and it's worth mentioning that it can reverse as fast as it can go forward, thanks to its hybrid engine which cannot be set on fire and gets repaired a lot quicker. Moving on to the utility, which is where the Shadow really shines, and while an extra 3% camo and 20-meter view range on top of what the Sphinx has might not sound all that impressive on surface, these numbers don't take into account the fact that the Shadow can lower itself to the ground, further improving its camo by 5%, and the fact that it has a rather unique module which can actively jams enemy vision within 300 meters, reducing their maximum view range by 10%, which effectively improves the Shadow camo even further. Lowering the ride height on the Shadow will make it 60% harder to be detected by thermal sights and will allow it to move without penalty to its camo. However, there are some negative aspects for such feature, as it will lower the vehicle's view range by 10 meters and reduce its top speed by 50%. In my opinion, these trade-offs are not bad at all, considering the fact that you can lower and raise the Shadow in less than a second. And finally, as far as targeting and armament, the Shadow only carries one weapon system, that is the single Javelin missile, and while it might appear to have an autocannon, well, it does not. As far as my recommended setup, for retrofits, I like to use the reload, both view range retros as well as the camo one, and you could also swap the reload retro for the thermal camera if you are after that pure scout build. For consumables, I like to take energy drink on vehicles that have a loader, which is what I did here. And for cruise kills, I decided to go with better mobility on the driver and reload a module damage on the gunner, who is also the loader on this vehicle. Commander Aaron with this particular build is my go-to on any scout, but if you don't have her, then you can either use Andre with this build for passive scouting or Ionis with this build for more of an active scout. And now that you've learned everything about this unique vehicle, you might be very eager to get your hands on one of them. But how would you do that? Well, as I said earlier, the Shadow is a part of the Battalion contract reward, but the way it's distributed is slightly different than that of the Hades vehicle. Instead of acquiring one part each time your battalion finishes a contract, the battalion leader will receive 100 parts upon the completion of any battalion contract. From there, the battalion leader can transfer any amount of these parts to any member of the battalion, and once you've collected 100 parts, you can assemble them into a full vehicle. It's also worth mentioning that members of the same battalion can also transfer Shadow parts between them thanks to the new trading system, which will be expanded to include even more tradable items in the future. And with all of that out of the way, I think we are all ready to see some gameplay. Okay, so here I am in the Shadow on Cold Strike, and this map isn't particularly great for scouts because of the limited flat areas. Sure, you can try and scout down the 1 and 2 lines, but the difference in elevation sort of limits how far back you can spot the enemy team. But I'm going to try and make the most out of it, and I'll be moving early on to a relatively aggressive spawning position that you'll see me head to, and hopefully I won't be ruining everything by my driving here. So this position right here is actually pretty useful if you can trust your camo and the spotting capabilities of your scout. This bushes right here should provide me with some camo that should keep me hidden. We managed to spot a Terminator there and a PL-01 who was a little too far forward and got a little punished for it. A couple MBTs trying to push down the river, and we outspot a Sphinx who was a bit greedy and trying to farm up damage early on in this game. Right now I'm sort of concerned about these two MBTs down there, the XM1A3 and the Dugman, and the PL-01 seems to not like it over there, so we decided to cross the bridge. I spot him and I lock him with my missiles, but I decided not to fire. I just didn't want to expose my position and possibly allow that PL-01 to spot me. The PL-1 gets spotted again, and it seems like he's just gonna sit around that corner. So I'll be locking him again, and this time I'll fire a missile to try and actually get him out of this game. Now you can see the missile, it takes forever for it to actually reach the target, and when it did, it got greeted by that APS, so it just gone to waste. The PL-01 gets behind cover, and I can't shoot him anymore. Now that I have more MBTs down the river, I'm not extremely concerned about what's going on there, and the Terminator gets spotted again, gets punished, but the Terminator seems to be in a decently good position, just sticking out the turret and completely covering up his hull. So you can fire a shot on him. Not exactly. We were able to lock him and I fire a missile. Now we just have to wait to see if that missile will actually hit the target. Even though the Terminator got unspotted, I believe I damaged him there. The only way you can actually break the lock of the missile is by deploying your smoke and moving from your initial position. So right now, I'm really thinking that this flank is fairly safe, but I'm looking at the city and it does not look great. We basically had no presence there. Our team decided that they want to actually contest the western side of this map, and they left the city completely open. So I'm falling back here to see what I can spot. I see there is a platoon of XM1A3 on the enemy team that are making their way toward our cap. So I wanted to sit up here and lay some vision to maybe try and deter them from pushing further up. And you can see here that I lowered the vehicle. That will surely give me more camo, and will allow me to stay hidden in case one of these XM1A3 was using some crazy spotting setup. We spot the Challenger there trying to make it across the bridge. I was hoping that my team will actually put some fire on it, but we'll see later in the game that Challenger made it to wherever he was trying to get fairly untouched. I really want to get rid of these XMs that are working in platoon because, well, there are XM1A3 that are really it's a vehicle that is really competitive in PvP, and they're working in a platoon. So getting rid of them, or at least some of them, will definitely help our team here. So I keep the vision up. I know that Challenger is closing in, so I decided to pull back, and I exit out of the lowered mode, which allowed me to travel at faster speed. And you can see how fast the Shadow reverses, almost as fast as it goes forward. It's actually the same speed, not almost. And now I want to deal with that Challenger, so first I'm gonna try and light him up for my team, and maybe try and do some of the damage myself. But he's contesting our cap, putting some pressure on our team, so I want to try and find him. And we managed to do that. Locked him, and I fired a missile. I should be able to fire a second missile even if my first missile didn't hit the target yet, thanks to the retrofit or the module, the upgrade module that I have on the Shadow, which allow you to have more missiles in the air. It seems like we hit the Challenger. We did reset the cap, so that was a hit. That was a hit, and we did shave off around 550 damage or hit points off of him. His APS pops, denying my missile there, but my second missile did manage to hit him, and now we spot him again. He's even on lower amount of HP than the first time we spotted him. So it's all great there. The Challenger seems to be no longer interested in capping anymore now that he's getting hammered by javelins. So I decided to go a little far forward here, just a tiny bit, to maybe get more vision. The XMs are still in the city, trying to fight it out. We've managed to take down one of them, so now there's only 2 in that platoon. At this point, I'm definitely being spotted by that Challenger, but it doesn't really matter because the camera on the Shadow that is mounted toward the back, it's actually where the Shadow spots target from. And if you can stick that out from behind a ridge line, you can be completely safe and be able to spot your targets without exposing yourself. I just thought that wasn't the greatest idea to just sit there, because all that Challenger needs to do is just to push toward me, and considering I had very little support there, I would just die there. So I decided to switch sides and cross the river to the other side. Maybe I'll be able to get better spotting, and maybe I'll be able to help the guys in the city. And I can get a tiny shot on that XM-1A3, but for some reason, the first missile completely misses him. The second one completely misses him as well. And I have no idea what's happening with the missiles right here. It should have been a kill. 4 missiles now, and none of them hit that XM-1A3. The javelins do actually get impacted by passive APS or the soft kill, as it's called in the game, but not to that extent. So I'm really not sure what was going over there. So the Challenger decided to go back on the cab, and I seem to have a tiny bit of a shot onto him here. I tried to lock him, and I managed to do that, but the Centauro decided to leave his position and push toward the city. So it's time for me to basically run away. Although he missed me the first time, he managed to hit me on the second one, shaving off half of my hit points, and now I'm getting out of there. I spot the Sphinx on my way that is trying to kill the Sprout. I lock him on the move and fire a missile. Sadly, the Sphinx manages to take out the Sprout in our team, but I avenge him. And now that all the scouts on the enemy teams are dead, I have way more freedom to use the Shadow and move around without having to worry too much about enemy vision. So I decided to make it back to the cap to see whether I'd be able to dig out that Challenger or not. I noticed that my XM right here, or my T-14, sorry, right here, did get shot. So I decided to just go down the river, stay at least 50 meters away from that Challenger, so I didn't get proximity spotted while I passed near him, and come up behind him and try and spot him and shoot him from a different angle. Now, obviously, with the javelins, it doesn't really matter. Their top attack, so it doesn't matter for them. But it matters for vision and how am I able to actually spot that Challenger. So I managed to fire one. The first missile gets taken out by APS, and now that Scent gets spotted again on 70 hit points. I fired a missile at him, and yes, his APS decided to trigger, and I didn't get the kill there. But it's good, we're doing great. Only 2 enemies remaining. I managed to lock that XM-1A3 before he goes into the between the buildings there, so I'm able to do a lot of damage. to his vehicle. And only that Challenger is what's left right now. So I'm trying to get a little bit sneaky here and farm up a little more damage toward the end, but the team managed to finish him off before I even get there. So not a bad game there for the Shadow on that particular map, as we managed to do over 7,000 damage and 4,400 spotting while getting a lonely kill. Being able to lay vision early, stop the Challenger from capping and disrupting that XM1A3 platoon on the enemy team did reduce the pressure on my team and allowed us to win. The Shadow is a very capable vehicle that is geared toward PvP gameplay, and if you've been watching my streams, I've had an immense amount of fun playing it in the past few days. The only sad part here is that it's a rental and it's going to expire soon, so I cannot wait to permanently unlock this thing through the Battalion contracts. That's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it or found it useful, and if you did, please consider subscribing for more upcoming Armored Warfare videos. As with always, thanks for watching, take care, and I will catch you on the next one.